What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good morning, everybody, and a happy Sacred Sunday to you. I'm your host, Love Coach Scott Thomas, and welcome to the Awakening World, our Sacred Sunday edition. I want to welcome those of you who are coming into our Zoom room. I see a lot of our friends coming on in. And as always, let us know where you are geographically. That's always fun. And I want to especially welcome all the people watching on YouTube and on Facebook, and on our new broadcast partner, the Conscious Awakening Network. It's really fun to have people from all these wonderful places watching us. And I want to thank John and Summer Raymer. They run the Sign Network, and that's how we get out to up to 100 Facebook groups and pages for all of our shows. Now, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, come on into our Zoom room. That's where we can see your questions, your comments, and interact more directly. And we have a really fascinating show today. Today, we're going to be talking all about ancient wisdom of the goddess and how that correlates to today. And we've got not one, but two amazing authors with us, as well as our wonderful friend Ariel Patricia, who runs Sacred Stories and has turned us on to these two authors. So we're going to meet two women who've just written books about Eros, goddesses of the Eros, and the goddess Inanna. And we're going to really go deep. So come and join us, and it's easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com. That's globalpeacetribe.com. Bring it up to show you here. And when you go to our website, you'll see where it says register for the fall season. And if you click there, that takes you to our registration page. You know, we do 3 shows every weekend, sometimes more. So for example, on Friday night, we did a whole show on overcoming shame and jealousy, a common human challenge. Then last night, we had a beautiful show last night where our collaboration with Teresa Collins and Global Coherence Pulse brought in Dr. Rulon Hugh and her amazing team of people from all over the world, teaching us all about the Tao of calligraphy and understanding how to raise our vibration. And boy, it was a beautiful, beautiful show. Now, if you missed it, don't worry, because by registering, you're going to get the links to the replays from all of our shows. We send that out on Mondays. And then, of course, this is today's show, Discovering Ancient Goddess Wisdom, with Dr. Joanna and Shiana. So it's going to be a great show today, and we want you to join our Global Peace Tribe. It's a beautiful community of people all over the world who are committed to playing our role in supporting each other in this awakening world. And it being a Sacred Sunday show, I always like to kind of slow down and drop in together. because actually we are going to learn some wonderful wisdom, and hopefully today learn some tools, learn things that we can take and apply to our lives that will help us in the awakening process. So I'm going to lead a very short meditation, and then we've got beautiful beloved brother Omashar to lead some music, and then we'll get into the dynamics of our show. So inviting everybody to close their eyes, take some deep breaths, and start breathing consciously, meaning that you are aware of your inhale and aware of your exhale. Breathing at your own pace, allowing my voice to just gently guide you. And I invite you to go deeper and deeper into the beautiful universe of you. Tuning into yourself. And tuning into your beautiful, beautiful heart. And I invite you to put your hand on your heart and feel your heartbeat. And as this is, for those of us in North America, a time of thanks, a week that we give thanks, let's give thanks to our beautiful, beautiful heart for choosing love. And let's drop into the heart of gratitude. When we live our lives in gratitude, that's when the miracles happen. That's when life becomes better. Seeing our world through the veil of gratitude. And as we open our hearts and go deeper into gratitude, let's be grateful that we get to come together this morning, or for those of you watching the recording, and we get to learn. So let's open our hearts, open our minds, learn from our wonderful guests today about the wisdom of the goddess and how that wisdom can support us and support our awakening world.
I give thanks. I give thanks for the warmth of our Mother Sun's rays. I give thanks to the creatures and the joy in their play. I give thanks for this moment upon the sweet earth. I give thanks to the love that called me into birth. I give thanks to Creator, in whose arms do I lay. I give thanks. I give thanks. I give thanks for this country on whose shores I abide. I give thanks for the many blessed tears that I have cried. I give thanks for the flowers and the gentle spring rains. I give thanks for this life that runs through my veins. I give thanks for the mother by whose love I sustain. I give thanks. I give thanks. I give thanks for the dawning of a radiant light. I give thanks for the stars that illumine the night. I give thanks for the loved ones who grace my day. I give thanks for the stillness in our hearts as we pray. I give thanks to my Creator for all of thy ways. Can we sing this? I give thanks. I give thanks. I give thanks. I give thanks.
Welcome, everybody. That was beautiful, Amrishar. What a perfect way to start our show. And
We're grateful.
And to kick off our Thanksgiving week. And wherever we are in the world, may we be in gratitude. You knocked me out of my body with that. I got so into the mantra of giving thanks. Thank you. Hey, a reminder, everybody, that you, of course, get to experience Omashar on the weekends with the Awakening World, but we can experience him anytime by going to omashar.bandcamp.com and getting his albums. And I still see that empty spot, Omashar, that you're going to be filling soon.
It is birthing as we almost as we speak. It's a process recording.
Yeah, looking forward to the new album coming out, but it's all supported by getting his albums. And I love seeing that we've got people from as far as Ecuador, Dorina in Ecuador, of course, California, Australia today. It's a really Canada. It's definitely a global peace tribe. I get to introduce you to someone who's actually been a big part of the Awakening World. She has helped bring many of our favorite authors to the shows over the past couple of years, going all the way back to Saturday Night Live days. And I am talking about Ariel Patricia. And there she is. And Ariel Patricia, thank you so much for the wonderful people that you've brought into our show. She is the CEO and the founder of Sacred Stories, a conscious book publishing and online media network. She's also a visionary behind Common Sentience. Now, this is a beautiful book series that brings the mystical to the mainstream by spotlighting and celebrating the mystical experiences that we're having. For example, you remember that we had Oscar on the show, on the Secret Sunday show a couple of weeks ago. And people loved Oscar, by the way. He was really just beautiful man. And you've got two more wonderful authors. They're both new for myself. I'm just meeting them today for the first time. So Ariel, I'm going to give you the opportunity to please introduce our guests today. And welcome to the Awakening World.
Thanks, Scott. Really happy to be here and very grateful to be here. And Omashar, what a beautiful song. Thank you so much. I would say when you said I am in gratitude, I was with you as I am gratitude, because I believe, we are the energy, right, of the intention. So, and I am in gratitude and gratitude to be here today. So, and it's a pleasure. It is such a pleasure because, as you mentioned, Sacred Stories book publishing and media, that's, we've been around going on 10 years, publishing it for going on 7 now. And, a lot of different people come to us, a lot of different projects and visionaries and authors and spiritual teachers. And when people come to Sacred Stories, what I'm always looking for is what is their level of mastery? What is their level of experience? Where is their heart? And what are they talking about? Are they talking about something that's kind of exciting and new, that's moving us another step forward, right, on our evolutionary, on our awakening path? And what I'm noticing And two of the two guests today, Dr. Joanna Kujawa and Shauna Zalazzo, fit this to a T. What I'm noticing is almost like a new crop, for lack of a better word, priestesses or modern day priestesses or goddesses that are coming forward. And they're different, at least from my perspective of what I'm seeing, because they've come from the mainstream world. They are educated, they're in academia, or they're in corporate, or they're in the medical profession, psychologists, psychotherapists, and so forth. So they're very educated in a mainstream discipline, but the mystical has come to them, the goddess has come to them, the spiritual has come to them, and it's been undeniable for them. And they've been able to and really integrated the wisdom, the ancient wisdom, the scholarly research with their experience of the mainstream. And so, and that's exciting for me. And so what I love about Dr. Joanna Kujawa and her book, and the reason that we picked up the goddesses of Eros and the other goddess, Mary Magdalene, and the goddesses of Eros and Secret Knowledge is the name of Dr. Joanna Kujawa's book. The reason that this was so exciting to me as a book, and now Joanna has a course, is because Joanna has done the research. Joanna's a scholar. She calls herself a spiritual detective, which is actually true. And she asked the question, is there a lineage of goddesses that claim the evolutionary power of female sexuality? And if so, why were they pushed to the shadows and demeaned as harlots? Was Mary Magdalene one of them? And what were her teachings? And what was fascinating, so fascinating about Dr. Joanna Kujawa's work was because she really brings to the forefront, we all talk about the divine feminine and masculine, and we know that that's not gender specific. We know that we're all, to bring us back into wholeness or balance, we all have the masculine and the feminine. However, the feminine in a lot of modern day teachings is all about the mother archetype. It's all about bringing that mother goddess or mother energy. And Joanna says, we've done that, but we've left out the other goddess who's represented in mythical, historical, and Gnostic sources as wise, mysterious, and the possession of the healing power of Eros. So beyond what, or including the teachings of Tantra and so forth, is the idea that our sexual power is a path to our consciousness, is a path to our awakening, and how important the energy of the sexual power is, and to bring a wholeness back to the feminine. So we want to bring the masculine and the feminine together, but we don't have a whole feminine yet. And so the goddesses of Eros, the other goddess, Mary Magdalene, and the goddesses of Eros and Secret Knowledge by Dr. Joanna Kujawa is a phenomenal and fascinating book. And I'm just delighted at Sacred Stories that we're able to share this wisdom. And I know you're going to talk to Joanna, so I'm going to just introduce Shauna for a moment, and then I'll turn it back to you, Scott. And the reason that Shauna was so exciting when she came to Sacred Stories was because Shauna is a psychotherapist. Shauna's actually a marathoner. Shauna's a surfer. Shauna's pretty badass, honestly, in so many ways. But the goddess Inanna has come to Shauna really, really, really strongly. And not only from the sense of, well, let me just teach you about my mythology, but about how the mythology or the examples of how Inanna lived her life through the mythology of Inanna, how that informs us today. And so Shauna will tell you that the Sumerian goddess Inanna embodies polarities: impatient and deliberate, attentive lover and fierce warrior, connected to fertility as well as death. So she's accessible, she's relatable, and she's an inspiring representative of the divine feminine as she stands in her power and multidimensionality. And so The Way of Inanna, the book that Shauna has written, A Heroine's Guide to Living Unapologetically, again, is not just for females of the female gender. It is for the bringing all of us back into wholeness. And what Shauna does in her book, and so brilliantly, is she took from years and years of being a psychotherapist, and what she talks with all of her patients about, and all of the issues that people bring today that have to do with binary, non-binary, gender identity, addiction, anxiety, all of these issues that people need help with, they need support with. And Shauna pairs that with the different mythologies of Inanna as examples of what Inanna is teaching us in the current day from these ancient myths, and brings practices and processes to help modern day heroes and heroines today. So I couldn't be more proud and more excited to work with both of these women and to bring them to the Awakening World Sacred Sunday today.
Wow, beautiful. Well, there's so much I want to learn. So I'm actually going to go in something that you just mentioned very briefly, Ariel, but our audience is the kind of audience that we can go into this. I'm going to start by asking Shauna, tell us about how Goddess Inanna came to you, and you can let her rip. We believe.
First of all, thank you, Ariel, so much for that beautiful introduction and for the opportunity to be here with you all today. Well, truly, I fell into Inanna. I feel as though I really began my initiatory experience with her when I was 19, and I experienced some challenges in my life that really, in essence, targeted my second chakra and my heart chakra. And these two centers in Inanna's mythology are really, they stand out. It feels as though she highlights merging these two powerful centers. And indeed, that is what happened to me in my early life as a 19-year-old. And these two very challenging experiences happened within the span of a week. And it really, in retrospect, looked like a major sort of intense initiation that began, and a process that began my own remembering of Inanna. But it was later in my life, probably about 10 years after that, that in my own research with the Divine Feminine, I came upon Inanna's mythology. And first I came upon her myth, the descent of Inanna, and saw so much in there that I could relate to. And it spoke to me at such a profound level. And I began playing with, I am an intuitive, and I do intuitive work as well. And so I began playing with in my meditations, relating to her and calling her in and connecting with her. And that really began the very conscious relationship, and then began a study of her other mythology and deepened literally my practice with her. But it was in almost like a training period with her that I was able to experience a lived reality of self-love that I had been teaching for a long time at that point. But it was once I sort of went through what I think of as a training with Inanna that I came to actually embody that. And really, it stirred in me this desire to bring this out into the larger world and to show what that really is and how we may be able to step into that. So that was the beginning. So I would say the beginning of my connection to her was at 19. But again, she is a goddess of the death mysteries. And even my own interest in death was from a very young age. So it feels very much like I came in as a soul who's been in devotion to Inanna for many lifetimes. Absolutely.
So question, how do you experience studying with her? Do you channel her? Do you hear her voice? Is it through inspiration? Like, how's your process?
Oh, I'm so grateful for that question. Thank you so much, Scott, because, it actually happens for me in multiple different ways. Mostly it's in a claircognizant sort of way. And even just in relating to her, the artistic renditions of her, I feel like I'm able to tap in. But it's also in just any conscious connection or intentional connection with her. It's like memories are activated. And so the information that I so even in her mythology, when I read her mythology, it feels more like a remembering than it does as though it's new information. And I really believe that this is what others will experience in doing this, and part of why I wanted to bring this book forward.
Beautiful. And one last question, and we'll go to Dr. Joanna for a moment. So in that divine remembrance, do you kind of create a field in which you can bring that in? And what's kind of your practice for, I can see you saying yes. So what's a practice that maybe you can share with others of how to create a field to be available to that coming through?
Absolutely. Well, for me, because I've been doing this for a long time, and it is, like I said, I do intuitive work as part of my work. So I have a process of tuning in that I do regularly. But it really is for me just setting aside time where I am in a sacred space. I like to be in front of my own altar, because I have items that literally are in support of, or let me say it differently, in devotion to Inanna, on my altar. So it feels like an orienting principle, but also a bridge. And so I don't have to be there, but if I am, before writing, for example, in writing the book, I would go into deep meditation and channel, and then go over to my computer and sit down. So it's really turning on this intentional openness to receiving her wisdom. And a practical way for folks that might be a little new to this kind of process is to take an image, take a visual representation of Inanna. Just find it on the internet or even her name. And you can just sit in meditation and just keep glancing, at the image or at her name. And you will feel yourself dropping into her energy, or her energy moving into alignment with your own. And just creating the space for that and setting that intention, you will begin to feel that she's here to support you, and she's certainly back. There's a resurfacing of interest in her, and I really feel like it is because of what she represents to women today, to humanity today, all of us. But certainly what Ariel was describing about bringing back this other aspect of the divine feminine, she is definitely intending to do so. So practicing with an image or her name, and just sitting as though you're having a conversation with her in meditation, and just receive and be open to her wisdom to come forward.
Beautiful. Actually, while you were talking, I went on images, and yeah, if you Google images, there's a lot of images of Inanna. And this is actually kind of an interesting one that came up. Now, is there anything, I don't know if you've seen this particular image before, but it looks like she's riding on, is that a lion?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so what's her relationship to the lion that we're looking at?
She does have a strong relationship to the lion. So sometimes she's depicted with her foot on the back of a lion. Sometimes she's depicted in mythology as riding a chariot where she's pulled by 7 lions. And I do explain my own interpretation of the lion energy in the book, but I'm always a firm believer that it's open for our own intuition, our own interpretation, and that it means whatever it means to you, right? But the way in which she is a courageous leader and protector of her people, I think is an aspect of the lion, for sure.
Okay, so now so that was kind of a very contemporary view. Here is an ancient Sumerian version. And again, there is Goddess Inanna with her foot on the lion. So we kind of saw like a modern day interpretation. Do you happen to know where this ancient Sumerian image came from?
I know it's on a cylinder seal, and I think it's housed at the University of, I think it's in Chicago, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this. However, what I do love in that particular image is the 8-pointed star, which is also a symbol of hers and related to Venus. I also love that. So she has her crown, the crown of the steps, and she has her her armor of light, right? She's the goddess of love and war. And my interpretation of her as a warrior is that she is a warrior. However, I believe that she's using her weapons to slay separation consciousness, that is really being utilized in service of love. So I see them as weapons of light. That's how I see them.
Beautiful. Now, here's a really interesting thing. This morning, I opened up an email from one of our regular, probably among our favorite guests are the Twin Ray. They're a beautiful couple. They've been on my shows for a couple of years. And they sent an email out today, and I personally connect with them frequently, but I said, oh, what did the Twin Ray have to say? And a big part of the email was about bringing in the consciousness of the white lions. Okay, that's interesting. Then this morning, Omashar and I did, every 2 weeks, we do an opening for Shri and Kira. They're another couple that are down in Ecuador. And it turns out that Kira had this whole vision just in the past 24 hours about the white lions. And then here we are talking with you, and you're talking about Inanna, and I had no idea that Inanna had a relationship to the lion. So I don't know, this is just a very interesting 2 hours. All this has happened for me in my little reality here in the last 2 hours. So is there anything about white lions, especially with Inanna? Is there anything?
Well, I haven't seen anything specifically about white lions, but I think for sure you're getting a message today.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and I do see the lion as her totem, as a representation of her capacity to be a defender of humanity and to protect humanity. And certainly there's something I would say coming through for you. I'd be very curious to what you find about the white lion.
Right. Well, thank you, Sean. It's wonderful to have you with us. Of course, we'll be talking with you more a little bit later on. Our other guest, of course, is Dr. Joanna. And now you've written this wonderful book about Eros and ancient goddesses. Now, I've been teaching Tantra and studying Tantra for a long, long time. Everything from, kind of real, genuine, traditional Tantra, and there's so many different forms of Tantra, going all the way to what I humorously call California hot tub Tantra, right? But I am really curious to hear about your study, kind of a similar, how did you first get interested in the goddesses of Eros? Who are they? What does that mean? And how does that correlate with Tantra that we can practice in present day? I know that's a lot. And you're muted, by the way, Stel. We need you to unmute.
Sorry about that.
No.
So thank you for this beautiful question. It's quite a story, as all our spiritual stories are. And why do we take up on one particular aspect of our spirituality? But for me, like for Shiana, and thank you for your beautiful sharing, Shiana, it started very early. So as you can hear from my accent, I was growing up in communist Poland, actually, which was also very Catholic Poland. So I was brought up as a Catholic. And I often, as a young girl, was going to a church and I saw these images of the divine feminine. So that was positive because I saw the images of the Virgin Mary, but which is the traditional mother image that we are used to when we talk about divine feminine. But kind of on a side of a church in the nave, there was always an image of another woman, and it was, of course, the image of Mary Magdalene. And somehow she was connected or associated with sexuality and wisdom, but also with rejection. So very early on, I realized that there is this kind of polarity in our lives and in our psyche that rejects female sexuality and kind of divides what to be a woman into a motherhood and basically badness, right? So somehow the secret knowledge, but also the erotic wisdom of the feminine was rejected. So it was there, and it was very close to to the leading teacher, Jesus. However, it was kind of also rejected and put on a side. So it couldn't be completely rejected because it was still there, but it was called a harlot. This archetype was called a harlot. This beautiful divine feminine was called a harlot. So I started to research to Mary Magdalene a little bit later, but first I started to look at the ancient Greek mythology because it is so much fun, right? And then I started to look at the goddesses of Eros. And of course, the first goddess that comes to mind in Greek mythology is Aphrodite, which is the goddess of beauty and sensual love. And it was quite interesting when I was looking into her story that she started, like Inanna, as a very powerful goddess who was driving gods crazy, who was driving in Zeus crazy because she could make them fall in love with everybody, whoever she wanted them to love. And she was actually adored and respected. But somehow, as we read the story of Aphrodite, eventually she started to be demeaned. She completely lost her power, the way actually, as I believe, female sexuality lost its power. So basically, she became ridiculed and lost her power to Zeus. So it was kind of an interesting metaphor about feminine sexuality. I look into other mythologies, and I looked into Radha, for example, in Hinduism. So everybody loves Radha because she's a kind of a goddess of love and surrender, when the beautiful feeling of falling in love. And interestingly, she was accepted in Hinduism, but I think that she was accepted in Hinduism as the goddess of Eros, because she was a little bit naughty. She was, I think, married, and she fell in love with God Krishna. However, she was accepted because of her surrender to beauty and to erotic love. But as you look closer into the story, she was accepted as a goddess of Eros simply because she's always in submission to Krishna. So I realized that a woman can be erotic, can express her sensuality as long as she in complete submission to her partner, right? And Krishna, he's a very handsome and sexy god. He's going around and having fun, and Radha just waits for him and hopes he will come. And when he comes, she's all there for him, in her beauty, in her physical beauty and in her sensuality. So yes, this sensuality and beauty was allowed for the feminine, but it had to be in complete submission to the masculine. And basically, if we look at the major, perhaps, premise of my book, The Other Goddess, it is that we need a feminine that fully reclaims her sexuality, fully reclaims the beauty of her Eros, fully reclaims, the wisdom of her Eros, right? So then the feminine and masculine can be on the same level. Another goddess, Hindu goddess, that is a tantric goddess that is not well known actually, that is goddess of Eros, is goddess Sundari. So goddess Sundari is actually called the Lalita Tripura Sundari. What a sexy name. I want everybody to repeat, Lalita Tripura Sundari, Lalita Tripura Sundari. It gets you into a groove kind of. And she is actually a goddess of 3 dimensions. She can move freely between different dimensions. She fully possesses her sexual beauty. She's very wise. And in fact, the stories say that her laughter is so sensual that the mango trees go into spontaneous fruition when they hear her laughter. So imagine what it does to human beings. Imagine what it does to men, right? But she's actually in full possession of her sexuality. However, if you look into the history of Sundari, she also loses her power because nowadays, for example, in India, most stores and that use the name Sundari are often like these dubious massage parlors. So again, I noticed that, like originally in my experience, Mary Magdalene was demeaned because of some kind of erotic element in her relationship, perhaps to Jesus, but also to her own body. she, the same, all other goddesses, including Sundari, this powerful goddess that can make mango trees come into a fruition just by smiling at them, or, through her laughter, suddenly they are being demeaned to this kind of lower level of pornography almost, so I realized that there was some actually historical process that we are referring to. And I think these processes are also present in our personal lives, because I guess maybe a next question would be, okay, how does it present itself in our lives? And then when we look into relationships, and you are the master of relationships, right? So when we look into our human relationships, there's this set polarity that very often when I talk to my male friends, they discuss, okay, she's my mother, but she's my mother, or she's the mother of my children, but I'm attracted to a completely different woman. So they categorize women into the mother archetype and the other woman, which is seductive, which is beautiful, but there's something wrong with her, right? And it's somehow divided and removed from the mother archetype, so there's this kind of polarity even in men's mind. So when I was looking into this in our personal lives, I thought that we generally fall into some traps. So one is the romantic trap, one is a marriage trap, and then there are beautiful things like erotic connection and sexual alchemy. I'm not sure if you would like me to explain the differences between them, or
Yes, absolutely. And I'm really appreciating you're doing a beautiful job of helping us to understand kind of the historical context. And I think obviously this is a time that finally the feminine is coming back into power after so long that, the masculine dominance really all over the world. So I'm really appreciating how you're tying that in. So please tell us more.
And and as I said, we really need a fully empowered feminine. We cannot just push it to one archetype, which is a very beautiful archetype, mother archetype, but there is more to feminine than a mother. So in our personal lives, when we speak about relationships, I always call these four elements of relationships, romantic relationships. One is the romantic trap. So what happens to a romantic trap? So basically we start with this beautiful feeling, erotic feeling of falling in love, right? So this is a beautiful, sensual, and emotional feeling. However, what happens to Eros in this kind of in this moment, it is that we, in a romantic trap, we desperately want to hold on to this original feeling. When we feel kind of a wonderful connection with each other, on which we don't have to work, we just connect, right? We just connect and we feel attracted to each other. Our minds are connected, our hearts are connected, our souls are connected. However, Eros is very playful and it's very difficult to sustain it. So what very often we do in our relationships, we try to hold on to this original feeling. And then I said, that's a mistake. You cannot do this. You cannot do this because you cannot hold on to Eros in this kind of way. So I give a kind of a metaphor here that you can wear with your beautiful red dress only that many times for the same man to the same effect. So it means basically, you cannot hold on to this original feeling by trying to control it.
Beautiful.
Right? Trying to control it. You have to kind of flow with this. So, and next one is marriage trap. Marriage trap is, let's say everything worked out and people get married. And I do not believe that every relationship should end in marriage, personally. Some relationships are very meaningful and, they don't have the same purpose as, marriage has. So in marriage trap, people fall into the trap because they start to assign roles to each other. Like, you're my wife, you're my husband, you take care of children, you're a provider, and then Eros disappears, right? We don't see each other anymore. We only see the parts or roles and masks that we wear, or the parts that we have to play in life. So I call it as a marriage trap. Not that I think that marriage is a bad thing, but that the way we sometimes approach and very often approach marriage. We get lost in our parts and we lost Eros. But fortunately, there are other ways. For example, I interviewed many people who are talking about what I call erotic connection. So erotic connection is in some ways a controversial concept, because in an erotic connection, very often two people meet and they completely recognize each other. They completely recognize their souls. This is a complete recognition, even if they don't know anything about each other, in their normal everyday lives, right? So they never know each other, but they meet and they have immediate recognition of each other's souls, which is often also very erotic. So in the one beautiful story that is in my book that one woman told me, it is that she had this kind of recognition with one man, and he had the same recognition with her. However, they could not be together because they were already otherwise attached. So I hope that it doesn't upset many people here. However, they had this one beautiful night together in which they actually had out-of-body experience, and they had a very spiritual experience of recognition of complete unity of the world and complete connection with each other. After that night, they separated from each other, and 20 years later, they never heard from each other again. The woman who became a celebrant, as we call it in Australia, which means she was presiding over marriages, weddings, and also funerals. She got as her first assignment, so to speak, to give funeral rites to a man's body who just was sent from England, back to Australia. And but his family wasn't there anymore, and she agreed to do this. And guess what? It was the body of this man with whom she had this beautiful erotic connection, the moment of erotic connection from 20 years ago. So there is something more mysterious about it when I'm saying this sudden recognition of each other, in our souls in a very deep erotic way. And even if people cannot be together, this connection kind of prevailed in this amazing way. And then there is something that I think we would call also Tantra, and it can also be called sexual alchemy, which is a more ritualistic approach towards erotic connection, which means using this beautiful erotic energy for the expansion of our consciousness and for an experience of complete unity with the source and with each other. So basically, I would put Tantra under the umbrella of sexual alchemy, because it was also practiced in other traditions, including in an Egyptian traditions. So I hope I didn't talk too much, but I wanted to introduce it to like a general view, a little bit of history about falling of feminine Eros into disregard. We somehow lost it, and now we have to reclaim it. And people have spontaneous experiences of it, sometimes that I call erotic connection, but also there are Asian traditions, including Tantra, which I call sexual alchemy, that actually can give us tools to experience Eros, or to use Eros for the expansion of consciousness and for closer connection with the spirit.
Beautiful. Gosh, there's so many things. I'm going to read some comments from our audience, so I'm going to bring everybody back on. And so I'm going to read a few comments, and then there's a few questions. But again, thank you. This is such an important time. Obviously, the show is all about awakening. And so what both of you are bringing into our world through your courses, through your books, is really helping us to awaken. And so thank you very much for that. One thought that I just want to mention is we've done several shows about Mary Magdalene. And I've always, and you might appreciate this because I'm guessing, Dr. Joanna, you're a recovering Catholic, going
Yes.
from right, being in Poland at that time, and then where you are now, that's quite a journey. That's quite a journey.
Yes, it was a journey.
And I've always thought, wouldn't it be beautiful for those who were raised in the Christian tradition that instead of in a church seeing a guy hanging on a cross with the blood, tortured and crucified for our sins, what if we went to a church where we saw Jesus and Mary Magdalene in Yab Yum? And that's what we worshiped. And that was the model. And that's what, that's always been like a fantasy I've had for a healthy alternate reality. So I just had to put that out there. All right. Some comments and questions. Dia writes, I sit stunned. Your work is bringing to a focused light my entire lifetime experience as female in relation to male. I cannot thank you enough for clearly presenting this precious body of discoveries and insights. Thank you. Thank you, Dia.
Thank you.
Reverend Jeffrey writes, great Lovolution work. Thank you. Omashar writes, such an expansive clarity, Dr. Joanna. Thank you. And Kiki writes, amen. George Noble points out his favorite heroine, Anastasia of the Ringing Cedars of Russia. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that book series, but it's a beautiful book series.
Yes.
So here's a couple of questions. Karen asks, how is it for twin flames to meet here in human form in this dimension? To either of your books or your research reference that. And Reverend Jeffrey, similar question. Does this relate to past life connection in terms of what Dr. Joanna was sharing about the recognition that took place? So there's a couple of questions, and I'll see who wants to handle either of those.
So maybe I will address the twin flames. So I think that definitely there is a possibility of past life connection, because, I think we are following this journey together for a very, very long time under different disguises. So, but I also think, because I do believe in reincarnation, so I think this kind of recognition must come from a past experience personally. That's my belief. However, I think that erotic rapture, which is a forgotten art of, ancient priestesses and Tantra, which is now recovering, is that whether we had this past connection or not is actually irrelevant, although I do believe that twin flames do have a past life connection, because erotic rapture is it actually breaks down the fabric of our reality. It sees that this kind of distinction between you and me and separateness and polarities is completely artificial. And what is more intimate when a true kind of erotic connection with someone else, right? We completely recognize oneness.
Mm-hmm.
So in this oneness, the experience itself can bring the awareness of oneness, right? So even if we didn't have a past life experience, there's a possibility in an erotic rapture that consciousness expands to this kind of level that all material, physical barriers dissolved. And I personally had this kind of tantric experience myself, when in erotic rapture, in a tantric experience, I actually not only didn't see any division between different human beings, actually the physical reality dissolved. I just saw sparkles of energy around me, and the feeling that lasted actually for 3 months. I was almost dysfunctional. So we realized that we are all this beautiful divine energy more than anything else in our bodies. And our bodies are actually beautiful tools, so to speak, to experience. They shouldn't be rejected, but to experience this divine unity, this divine energy, this glory of being alive in a body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it answers the question. I got carried away a little bit.
Well, actually, it brings up so now I've got my love coach Scott cap on. My day job is I work as a coach. And I coached about 1,000 couples. And one of the things that I didn't know, but I've experienced and learned through working with so many couples, is that almost inevitably, when a couple comes together after procreation age, in their 40s and up, when there is a strong mutual sexual erotic attraction, there also is this interesting aspect of polarity where they trigger each other's wounds. And I call them wound mates, right? You know, we all are looking for a soulmate, but often we get a wound mate, and that's not a bad thing. It's a hard thing. It's an uncomfortable thing, but it's almost inevitable that when there is that strong mutual sexual attraction, I believe it's their two souls implanting something that really keeps them coming back, right?
That's right.
Even though it's hard. And so I'm just curious, and I'll bring Shauna on again too, because that's something I've discovered with hundreds of couples now. And so I'm curious, you know, you touched on that a little bit, Dr. Joanna. So I'm just curious how that dynamic of raising our consciousness, raising our awareness, fits into some of your studies or channeled information, if you will, from the goddess wisdom.
Well, go ahead, Joanna.
No, I said the Shauna. Yes.
I just was just going to mention so much of what you're describing around the sort of the activation, the wound mate concept that you're describing. It's almost like this opportunity to bring our awareness into that second chakra. Inanna really does emphasize, like, there is her mythology is very erotic, and she speaks very openly about her holy vulva, and there's a lot of focus on this center, and it feels like a little bit about what you're describing, Scott, is this sort of reminder to do the healing within, to deepen into that potentiality that's present when these two souls come together, and it is just absolute magic, right? So if you really emphasize the healing, and Inanna does do this, so when you work with her, there's activation that happens in the second chakra. And I think that that's such a powerful way in which to prepare, if you will, self for the transmutive experience that we can have in these kinds of alchemical connections that you're describing, Joanna, around these sacred unions, you know.
Beautiful. Joanna, do you want to riff on that? Add anything to?
Well, beautifully said, Shauna. And yes, I would just add that that's good. You know, I really like what you said also, Scott, about, wound mates, because we are here also to heal. And, why in this kind of erotic connection, this healing is also made possible and fun, because we trigger each other, but there's this strong attraction. So this is this very powerful and sexy relationship when we can also, heal our spirit at the same time, right? So I think it actually gives us an opportunity to work on what has to be worked out before we can move on spiritually and otherwise.
Beautiful. All right, well, we've got, this is from one of our viewers on Facebook. And actually, it's a question now I see for you, Shauna. She's wanting to know if the goddess Inanna shows up as other archetypes. In other words, are there other archetypes that are kind of goddess Inanna, but putting on a different mask, a different costume? I'm kind of synthesizing along, but you're responding to Rhoda's question. I've kind of synthesized it.
Oh, thank you, Rhoda. That's such a perfect question, and you're right on to it, because it's exactly true. She is known as, there's the way in which she's known as Aphrodite, as Venus, as Ishtar. So, and Joanna's book talks even about sort of bringing this beautiful archetype even further back, right? So, so ultimately, yes, Inanna does show up in these different presentations, if you will. And it's very astute of you to pick that up. And also, even just that notion speaks to so much that Inanna represents, which is her multidimensionality. which is one of the reasons why I love her so much and why she is so relatable to us today. It's like she is inviting us to own our multidimensionality, to really stand into a place of unconditional embrace of the totality of ourselves. And so your question highlights her many faces, but we all have this. And it's an invitation today for us to begin this beautiful, unconditional relationship with ourselves, to be able to transform to be able to stand as agents of change in the world at large. If we can bring that kind of unconditional embrace, inclusivity, union to the totality of ourselves, we are more equipped to do this in the larger world context. So I love that question. Thank you.
Beautiful. I want to open it up. We've got another 30 minutes, so definitely, and we will close with an Omashar song. But I'd love to put it out there for some more comments or questions for me to share. And I want to bring Ariel back on. Ariel, what are some of the thoughts that come up for you that, and by the way, thank you for once again bringing us two brilliant women, and I'm really appreciating the show. And is there anything you'd like to riff on or add?
Yeah, I would. I think where this all lands for me, or what I think is important on our larger evolutionary awakening, right, is the concept of bringing us back into wholeness. And so we're so fragmented on so many levels, whether it's the archetypal level that Joanna speaks to with the mother archetype, the teacher archetype, the Eros archetype, the warrior archetype. There's many archetypes that the feminine holds, and there's many archetypes that the male holds. And we've lost to a great degree, or fragmented or demeaned, the Eros archetype. And so I don't believe that I think it's so critically important that we reclaim the reclamation of all aspects, all fragments on an archetypal level. And that's why the work of Eros is so important. And then the deeper work, the relationship work that you're speaking to is part of that. But it's even acknowledging that the archetype of the Eros goddess, or the archetype of the Eros energy, deserves respect, deserves honor, deserves to be recognized and embraced. We have to love all aspects of ourselves, even on the archetypal level. And that's what I love about Joanna's book and all of the goddesses that she brings in the mythologies. Both of these books are steeped in mythology and research as well, and personal story. Brings this ancient wisdom to today to show us that this is our history, this is who we are, and how important it is to reclaim from the archetypal level. And what I love about Shauna's book, and what Shauna brings to it, is not only the archetypal level of the goddess Inanna as this Sumerian goddess that holds many archetypes. She mentioned love and war, and she's a leader, and she's a warrior, and she's a lover, and I mean, it goes on with Inanna, right? And she has many faces and many names. But we're also fragmented at a point of an experiential level for the human experience. So we're experiencing trauma or fragmentation of our souls on so many levels. And whether that is showing itself through anxiety or addictive behaviors, or gender identities that that aren't maybe necessarily recognized, the concept of binary or non-binary. I mean, there's so many things that we're dealing with, which is another fragmentation. And now it's at the personal experiential level. And so the goddess, the wisdom, the ancient spiritual wisdom, and again, it's not male or female, is simply just is, right? Is bringing this wisdom to show us how we can work back to wholeness, or awaken on that evolutionary path of wholeness from a personal experiential level. So I'm so excited to have this conversation, because I think that it's important that we recognize, at least from my perspective, that we're really working on larger archetypal energies, and we're also working on personal experiential energies. And, we need to be looking at both. And these two brilliant women have done the research and brought the mythology and brought the books and the personal experiences to show us a path on both of those levels.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to take a look at how to get their books and the course that Joanna is teaching. But while I've got you here, I just really want to acknowledge the wonderful Common Sentient book series. And we've had almost all of these people on the show now. We've had Oscar and Anna Maria, Dr. Jenna. I met Sister Jenna in person in Sedona 2 weeks ago. She was here for the film festival, and I was hosting and moderating her panel. So we actually got a chance to meet and connect. William Henry is going to be on our show on Saturday night, December 17th. We're doing a whole show about awakening. And Tricia McCannon, I've known Tricia for 35 years. I used to book her back on when I was producing Strange Universe and Paranormal Borderline. So just really wanting to acknowledge all these wonderful books that you've created and published. So thank you. And I guess we still have to get Dr. Farmer on. I haven't had him on the show yet. So there we go. Thank you for these wonderful books. And looking ahead, my dear friends, JJ and Desiree, I was just connecting with Desiree a few days ago, and I'll be with them back in Sedona when they get here. And they've got a book coming out in May. So, and she's going to be, JJ and Desiree are going to be my guests on our special Christmas Eve show. So just appreciating how it all kind of winds together. I see, Reverend Jeffrey is applauding that JJ and Desiree are going to be here for Christmas Eve. So thank you very much for the work you do, Ariel, in bringing these wonderful authors and what they are sharing to our world. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Can I just make one comment about that? Because it ties into the idea of wholeness. So the concept of common sentience is, again, still many paths up the mountain, right? Or many connections to the divine. And the idea of bringing us back, it's still about wholeness. So whether your direct connection is through the angelic realm, or whether it's through animals or through nature, meditation, Eros, maybe other goddess wisdom, sound. JJ and Desiree, I'm absolutely thrilled that they're doing the sound book. But what it's bringing is the wisdom, which I think is so incredibly important about these topics, about these spiritual phenomena that are available to all of us. And then we bring in the personal mystical experiences we're all having. So Scott, the world is awakening, without a doubt, the world is awakening. And I think that it's very important. We talk about bringing it's common sentience, bringing the mystical to the mainstream. It's very important that I believe that we not only acknowledge, but we celebrate that, we come out of the spiritual closet. As I say, the last closet to come out of is the spiritual closet. And we acknowledge that these mystical experiences we are having, and we can tune in even deeper. And so what common sentience is creating is literally a compendium of spiritual wisdom and true mystical experiences. So anybody could pick up any specific book on a specific topic, read foundational and deeper wisdom and processes and practices on how to connect, what it is and how to connect, and then also feel the really literally transmissions of true mystical experiences that people from around the world are having. So another way I say common sentience is unitive consciousness, is really what we're talking about. It is the unitive narrative of bringing that wholeness, the human experience and the spirit, really forward. So thank you for your support of the series, and thank you for your acknowledgement of it. But it is, I would say, without a doubt, this world is awakening, and it's very exciting.
Beautiful. Well, kind of building on that theme, a question for Shauna and Dr. Joanna. As you've done your research, as you've written these books, as you've gone from Catholic communist Poland to your new life in Australia, what have you observed and experienced that gives you hope? Because now is a good time for us to get hope that our world is awakening, that things are evolving. So Shauna, maybe if you could answer first, and then Dr. Joanna.
Absolutely. There's a way wherein the work that I do, there is a greater receptivity to the spiritual, and that is, beginning my work in as a social worker, as a psychotherapist in private practice. I have seen a deepened desire to explore. I began my social work career in end of life. So I was doing hospice social work first. And even right then, and that was a long time ago, people would transform in such a quick way when they went through the grief process and had the opportunity to connect with a medium. It was like the most powerful grief counseling. It was so quick and transformative. And so there was already this opening that I saw early on. And now there's this desire, almost like I want to do, there's a desire for engaging in ritual and taking the power in their own hands to end a pattern of behavior or an erroneous belief and transmute it through the power of ritual. So there's this way wherein the folks that I'm blessed to be able to work with are really wanting this because they see how powerful it is, how transformative it is, but also it feels natural to them. It's this almost like permission has been given for them to be who they really are. And I'm seeing this sort of tendency to hide that part of themselves fall away. And it's really exciting to watch because there's a deep acknowledgement within themselves of like, this is who I am at my core. And I love what Ariel is doing in with the Common Sentience series, because it calls forward these beautiful individual stories and people get to share their lived experience of magic, really. And it's normalizing it and making us see that this isn't something rare. It is the norm. It's not abnormal. It is something so beautiful. And so I do believe the world is awakening for sure. And I see it firsthand in the work that I do.
Beautiful response. Thank you. Before we go to Dr. Joanna, I'm going to ask a really silly question, but it's just in my mind. So as my mind puts together that you are a world-class surfer and that you channel Goddess Inanna, does she ever kind of come in while you're surfing? Does she like to surf with you?
Oh, she definitely likes to surf with me. I wish I was a world-class surfer. I am not at all, but I do surf. And she is most definitely a part of that. In fact, I do a moon ritual with my sisterhood of surfers every full moon, and we do literally surf under the moonlight and of the full moon, and we are always acknowledging her. And we look for Venus in the sky to see if we can see Venus, because it's quite visible where we are. So she's with us for sure.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. All right, Dr. Joanna, back to the question of what have you seen, observed, experienced that gives you hope for our awakening world?
I think people are awakening all over the place, even in academia, which seems kind of ironic, because when I started to write originally academically about spiritual experience, I was so self-conscious, like that I would be called a lunatic or something. And now it's a big thing. And when in my book, The Other Goddess, write about Kundalini experience, Kundalini awakening, people tell me, oh, I didn't know. I think I had a Kundalini awakening too. People just look for an opportunity to learn more about it. People realize that they have constantly spiritual experiences. They just need a vocabulary, and they just need acceptance, like other people write about it. People share about stories, like Shona's book, like all the books published by Ariel, like shows like this, that they can confirm to people that what they experience is actually a huge part of a human experience. And then they just, in the past, people were just pushing it away into the margins of our consciousness because they didn't want to feel stupid, or, like maybe it's some kind of paranormal stuff, or, it was outside of our normal point of referral. But now everybody is talking about it, even in academia. People are interested in this, and people constantly tell me, that they had spiritual experiences. They just didn't know how to basically contextualize them within their own lives. And once they learn that it's possible everywhere, it's possible in lovemaking, it is possible in grief, it is possible when you go for a walk, it is possible when you dream, that spiritual experience is present at all times, and people are opening more and more to it and acknowledge it in their own lives, personal lives.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's very inspiring. All right, we have a question. This is from Dorina, so I'm going to bring all of you back on. And you can each answer it if you wish. In what ways are you able to bring the divine and sacred aspects of these amazing goddesses into the daily, extraordinary life and living, both yours personally and those around you?
I'll answer that right off the bat. In the work with Inanna, one of the things that stands out is her willingness to stand in her glory. That's in a part why it's called the unapologetic heroine. And so in my own life, and certainly in working with folks, anytime a resistance in me surfaces, a tendency to keep myself small or hide or be overwhelmed, I really literally call in her name, call her, and feel that energy of her standing in her glory. And I can use that as a bridge for myself to move through whatever resistance is present. In addition, when resistance surfaces in other ways, like a resistance to a situation or to seeing the greater message behind a situation, because it's frustrating or growing resentment occurs or something to this effect, I'm immediately able to call in her energy, and it's alchemized through the heart. So then it shifts, the resentment to the situation shifts. I go from disappointment to a deepened acceptance, and she just kind of fills me with this opportunity whenever I call on her. And I really invite folks to try this because it's very, very powerful. And when you work with Inanna, get ready, because she's going to come through, because she wants to. And so when you put forward that intention and you draw on that, on her assistance, she'll help you literally decipher everything that you experience in your world through the heart. And with that, your whole reality can shift, and it can be very quick, because when you're in a place of anger or resentment, you can't hold compassion at the same time. So when you call in compassion, or you call in a desire to be in deeper acceptance, or to see the greater medicine behind the situation, it just occurs. And what falls away and dissolves is that anger, the resentment, the disappointment. So And this is very, very tangible in the work that I do with folks as well. It's very accessed by people that I work with as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was awesome. Dr.
Scott,
Joanne?
I was going to say, can I just interject for a second? Because Shauna is she's so humble. So I'm going to cheerlead just for a moment. But in Shauna's book, The Way of Inanna, the book is structured that it takes you through the 7 gates of ascension, and it is the journey, and it is the journey through all of these different situations that we experience within our human life. So as I mentioned before, whether it's anxiety or addiction or relationships, or Shauna could tell you all the 7 gates, it starts with the descent of Inanna and then through the ascension of Inanna. And the mythology is in every chapter, and the human experience is in every chapter. So as a psychotherapist, Shauna also explains it. As a spiritual scholar, she brings in the mythology, but then as a spiritual intuitive and teacher, she also gives rituals, practices, and processes from a spiritual perspective for each of the different gates, and suggested what you can do in order to work deeper with Inanna and work deeper with these energies that can help you with those different issues. So calling on Inanna, of course, that's where we begin, but there are really beautiful practices, processes, rituals that are actually in every chapter of the book relating to each gate that Inanna goes through on her path to ascension as a guide for all of us. So I just wanted to just cheerlead that for Shauna, because it's really brilliantly written and done. And I know it will be of great help to others.
All right. Well, since we're talking about it right now, here's how you get it. You can go to Amazon and get it that way, The Way of Inanna. And I see that it's available as paperback, but also on Kindle. And I'm a Kindle guy. And of course, you can follow the author. And after meeting her, we definitely want to follow her. So I'm going to put this link in the chat box, everybody. And I want to encourage you, please, let's all get The Way of Inanna. And I'm adding it to my cart for my next Amazon order. Oh, now you guys all see what I ordered from Amazon. So, and is Amazon your preferred way to sell, or is there another way that you prefer for people to buy the books?
You know, all of our books of sacred stories are available worldwide from all booksellers. And Amazon is certainly an easy one to go to, and I'm an Amazon fan, of course. So I'd say whatever people prefer is what I'd recommend. And also very exciting, I will tell you that Joanna and Shauna's books have both been, if anyone speaks complex Chinese, they've both been picked up by a Taiwan publisher to be translated into complex Chinese and sold throughout the Taiwan market. And they've both been picked up for audiobooks through Tantra Media, part of Recorded Books. So actually February, Shauna, I haven't even told you this, but your audiobook will be released February 21st. And Joanna's will be out a little bit later in the year. So print and certainly paperback and ebook right now, but look for both of these books in the coming months in audiobook. And if you're in Taiwan, you'll be able to find them in complex Chinese at some point. And we're hoping in many other languages as well.
Beautiful. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, since we're kind of concluding, Shauna, I also am taking people to your website. And I see here that you do intuitive soul readings. Is that something that's still available for people?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about that. What's that? Is it you or you and Inanna? Do we get like a little double feature there?
I always bring in Inanna. And I love what Ariel was saying about the rituals at the end of the book. Also, just to add in, they're fun. That's the other thing that's cool about working with Inanna is these rituals are quite joyful. In the soul readings that I do, I connect with your guides and your higher self, and I go into your Akashic records, and really it's an opportunity to really be myself, to be sort of a mirror for you to receive your own divine guidance, you know. And I love doing this work because it feels more like an opportunity to help people see themselves really clearly, and then they can just integrate the work on, you know, that they have the answers within. So that's really the intention behind the work that I do, is to help you see you already possess the answers. Let me show you how that you really do. And that's really the intention of the work that I'm doing now.
Oh, beautiful. Shauna, what a pleasure to have you on the show. I love your energy and I love what you're doing in the world. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to reading your book.
Thank you so much.
And I want to thank Dorina. She just reminded me in the chat box that if you are going to buy the book through Amazon, or anything you buy through Amazon, please go through the Amazon Smile program. We're connected to that. And so a little itty bitty part of what you give to Jeff Bezos makes its way to the Global Peace Tribe. And it's really easy. Just go to amazonsmile.com and then choose Unify the World. That's our nonprofit partner. And they collect the money for us. And we love Unify. Unify is an important collaborative partner for us. And thank you, Dorina. I haven't promoted this for a while. I kind of forgot. I mean, I use it myself, obviously, but thank you for the reminder there. All right, well, let's bring up Joanna and learn a little bit more. She's got a few wonderful things that she's doing, including a course. So Joanna, I'm going to bring it up, but tell us about your course through Sacred You on the goddesses of Eros and sacred knowledge.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity, Scott. So my book, Via the Goddess, is basically a kind of detective spiritual journey through the mythology and my own and other people's experiences of Eros as a spiritual gate to to our consciousness. But the course is a companion to the book, but also separate from the book, because what it does, it has 1 hour lecture. It has 5 modules. It has a 1 hour lecture with beautiful images, and each module is also accompanied by a guided meditation and by structured journaling. So this is leads to your previous question, that what the course does, it allows us to practice what I've discussed in Via the Goddess, because of the meditations and because of structured journaling. So each module has a practical application as well, and rituals, meditations, and structured journaling as a reflection upon our meditation, to bring the goddess within and then out again to the world.
I just put into the chat box, I really like what people are going to learn about from taking the course. So that's the chat box, everybody. And yeah, learn rituals and prayers to connect with the goddesses. Beautiful. And again, here are the different modules. And I want to take this course. This looks fantastic. Really, really beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. It looks very rich and very, very deep. Oh, and well, here we go. The rift between sexuality and spirituality. I made the joke about California hot tub tantra, but for me, real tantra has been combining my sexuality with my spirituality. And, we live in this world that separates those two. And probably going all the way back to turning Mary Magdalene into a prostitute. But, coming back into combining our sexuality with our spirituality, it's such an incredibly important unification within ourselves, within our relationships. So I want to thank all 3 of you for the wonderful work that you do. And I hope you'll all come back and be on the Awakening World again, because you're all terrific. And thank you, everybody. And we always start and end with Omashar. He is the Alpha and the Omega of the Awakening Worlds. So I'm going to go to Omashar for our closing song.
Wow, thank you. I feel so centered, and I feel my mother presence just overflowing. And Inanna is my new best mate. And thank you, Shana and Joanna. It's you're so joyful in your expression at the same time. It's infectious. And something that Ariel said, coming out of the spiritual closet. Holy smoke, I realize I've been in my spiritual closet my whole life, even though I only write music which is divinely inspired and spiritual. But I realize I have been in a closet because I only share my spirituality in these formats, not out in the world. And so now it is time to just shuck that all off. And so here's a song, and it's called What More Can I Be Than What I Am, or than what we are. And so let's... Thank you. Jeffrey, we need you, brother. What more can I be than what I am? Though it's taken some time to clear these clouds from my eyes. So open your heart and dance along. I'm thinking it's time to stop that same old song. I've come alive. So hear me now, I am in love with the world around me, and I will hold her in my arms, and lift her with my dreaming. La da da da, and lift her with my dreaming. La da da da. my dreaming. Da-da-da-da. So don't try to hold me to what I was. I've traveled through time to see this day arise. The love that I am is here for you. So open the door and let the sun shine in. I've come alive, so hear me now. I am in love with the world around me, and I will hold her in my arms and lift her with my dreaming. Da-da-da-da. And lift her with my dreaming. Da-da-da-da. And lift her with my dreaming. La-da-da-da. So open your heart and dance the same old song no more. I've come alive, so hear me now. I am in love with the world around me, and I will hold her in my arms, lift her with my dreaming. Da-da-da-da. And lift her with my dreaming. And lift her with my dreaming. Da-da-da-da. What more can I be than what I am?
Let's all, I could go to gallery view, everybody. Let's all twinkle, beloved Omashar, and wonderful to watch all of you dancing. Hey, even George got up and danced. I love it. All right.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Well, it's the completion of another wonderful weekend on the Awakening World. And I just so appreciate each and every one of you. And in this week that we go into gratitude, may we spend our week in gratitude for our awakening world, for collaborating, for learning each from all these wonderful authors. Thank you, Shauna, Dr. Joanna. Thank you so much, Ariel. And have a wonderful week, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving for those of you that are Thanksgiving people. And happy gratitude to all. And we'll see you next weekend. Take care, everybody.